Brandi, you say this is actually better than what they were going to do. Why is that?
Well, I mean, I think they get a little less brave on election years to do truly crazy stuff. But last legislative session, they were going to do the same kind of hotline thing, but it almost had a bounty. So there were, you could get a check from the state, basically, if you were the victim of a hate crime, which a lot of people were like, aren't we going to have just individuals calling the hate line hotline and saying, "Oh, I'm the victim," and whatever, and give me money. And so they didn't have that money aspect of it in here, which would have
Oh,
been an absolute train wreck. I think it was like $2,400. I mean, you had to prove some things or whatever, but it just felt like it was going to be a disaster. And this is ridiculous. Allison, we already, first of all, hate crimes are already against the law, and as you know, there's already a hotline to report crimes. You know what it is?
Crime Stoppers.
911. It's
Oh,
it's 911. So this is just one of those, or Crime Stoppers. This is just one of those feel good, money wasting. It's going to cost like more than $2 million a year. It's just ridiculous.
all right. Well, let's talk about how they're defining some of this stuff because, okay, as you said, yes, and Reclaim the Net reports too. The bias incident is not something that rises to the level of 911. That's why they created this. And they're saying that it offers a non-police option with the hotline operational, and it's going to send you to relevant local services that are culturally sensitive and informed about trauma, as well to compile these incidents for annual reports. They're saying that they'll send you to local services, relevant
Mhm.
local services. So what do you think about that? They say, hey, yeah, of course, Brandi, it's not for 911. It's for incidents where
Mhm.
you need to find some culturally sensitive local services, and we need to have that.
I mean, I'm just trying to think what that bias incident would be then. If it's not 911 worthy and you need like culturally relevant services, are you talking about like someone served you food that wasn't culturally significant? I don't understand what the biased incident would be. I mean, if somebody screams like a, racial slur at you, I mean, that's terrible. And yeah, that's not necessarily a crime, but do you need to, I guess, what is a hotline going to do for you? And then what kind of services that are they going to connect you with? Like, is it counseling? I don't understand how this is going to work in practice. I think it's going to lead to a lot of just random reports of things that aren't actually bias incidents. And it's just a waste of money.
One thing I did not see is how they vet these incidents. Like, is there any investigating protocol?
No, one of the things they said in here is essentially there's a couple things that are also weird about it. So if you call into the bias hotline to report something and they feel like it is a violation of the law, they'll ask your permission to contact local law enforcement. But if you don't want local law enforcement contacted, then they just don't do anything with it and they connect you to services, which to me, I mean, it seems weird if the state knows about something that was a crime and this person, you're calling a state hotline and they're calling and reporting a crime and you're not going to report the crime to police as a state government agency. That seems strange to me.
Mhm.
And then on the back end of it, there was this other weird, gosh, I'm trying to think what the wrinkle was. I need to pull this bill up about, let me pull it up here for a second. There was this
Okay,
other
while you're
weird
looking
wrinkle. Oh,
for
oh,
that.
no, I remember what it was quick.
Go ahead.
It also has all these restrictions on public disclosure. So basically it's saying like, we're going to do this hotline, but none of it's public disclosure, none of it's disclosable for PDR. We're going to hide all this information, which, I don't know who's going to request calls to the bias incident hotline, but let's just say you've got the same person calling in over and over and over and over again. That's the only person using the hotline is just some wackadoo. Shouldn't the media be able to figure that out and say, hey, it's just the same person using it. Do you really need this $2 million hotline every year? So the lack of transparency about the hotline that's actually built into the law is concerning and strange.
Mhm. As they write here, it might discourage individuals from expressing their views, especially if those views are unpopular or controversial. The fear of being reported for legal expressions of opinion lead to self censorship. Can actually be the intention of this this action to get people to just shut up?
I mean, it's quite possible because I can think of, when we're pondering what is the bias incident. Let's say I misgender someone, right? Is that a bias incident? And then am I going to end up because this person was offended and they called the bias hotline? Am I going to end up on a list of, suspects on a bias hotline with the state? So that kind of stuff is concerning as well. And also, where is that list? Like, do they keep track of, if somebody calls in and says it doesn't rise to the level of a crime, they don't want it reported to law enforcement, but now the state has your list as your name on some list as some hateful person. Are they going to track you? Are they going to use their logically AI software that they're paying for, to look into your social media? So it's just weird. And also, I would just say, I mean, obviously it's performative, right? Because we have so many crimes on the rise in Washington state. Do hate crimes happen? Yeah, there's been a couple incidents of them that have been caught on camera. I think hate crimes happen both from the far left and the far right, but they are a tiny, minuscule, itty bitty little fraction of all the crimes happening in Washington state. And it's like, of all the things that the attorney general who wants to be the next governor could focus his time and energy on, this is it because it's performative.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I am biased towards, and I'm going to report you, Brandi, if I ever catch you drinking a bad glass of wine.
Oh,
So go
good.
to Allison Wine Promo, AllisonWinePromo.com. You guys. So the wines are going to cycle through. Brandi, if my internet goes out, please take over my commercial for me. Just tell everybody it's awesome wine and if you get it. Allison Wine Promo. It's your extremist altitude wine as usual, but now there's going to be wines from other areas besides extremist altitude. Argentina, we've got Chile, Spain, France. We're going to be doing videos with the guys behind getting these wines from places that are extremely remote and are like I said in my last ad for this, it's like your parents, like my parents, they took up winemaking for a little while. It was pretty good. I can't disparage it too badly, but I've had some friends who've gotten into wine and beer making, and it's absolutely disgusting. And you spit it out in the bathroom when they're not paying attention. This is like the hand processing of your friend's basement, but with actually palatable wine. It's from remote regions, so there's very few pesticides. They don't use flavoring or dyes or any of that stuff that's in commercial wines. And like I said, you're going to get hear firsthand from people who are picking these wines and bringing them into the United States. One of the only suppliers, really, in some cases, the only. And then it's the wine I'm drinking too. They're sending me and cycling them through every 3 months. And we're going to just like start the wine club. And you know what? We're going to be winos. And we're going to wine about other things besides just how crazy Washington State is. So go to AllisonWinePromo.com, sign up. You're going to get on the newsletter and be part of the wine club. Can't wait till start it up. See you there. All right. So Brandi, I think one of the things that is of interest is like if this were just taken on its own, it would be still weird. I'm not going to want to be weird, but Washington is kind of trending in a direction of redefining a lot of things. Like, let's take, for instance, this whole bill that passed, and I think it's officially law now, correct me if I'm wrong, where if your kid runs away because, or at least in part, you didn't affirm their gender transition ideas, then the state doesn't have to tell you where they are. And that's now risen to a level of basically child abuse. And so when you see them instituting something like a bias incident, it's like, is this just the new way to widen the net for the government to control behavior and to tell you that you are like a thought criminal, and they're criminalizing parents, for instance, for their ideas about how children should be parented, on a very controversial topic that lots of people disagree about. And now all of a sudden, like, the state's basically taken a stand on it and said, we're redefining. It's just where a lot of people get concerned that it's like trending in a similar direction in that way. Sorry.
Well, we've seen this, ever since the pandemic. I mean, I really do think there were some jurisdictions like in Washington state that kind of were seeing, oh my gosh, people will let us do a lot of things. People will give us a lot of control over their lives. And I'm sure there's some politicians who recognize that. And it's like, how much can we do? Because really, I've seen this ratcheting up of just the kind of proposals that you're talking about since the pandemic started. It's like they got more emboldened to put forth really ridiculous, sort of creeping and intrusive bills. I think it was last session or the session before, or they all run together because just time flies in the land of insanity. There was a bill put forth that would have criminalized lying about elections in Washington state. Thank God it didn't pass. But can you imagine criminalizing lying about elections? And I want to say it was maybe, I don't know if it was California or something.
How would anybody in government keep their jobs if they were actually held accountable to that? I want to know.
Yeah.
Since they all lie so much about.
Well, and that's the other thing is like, what if you had a bill criminalizing, and I want to say one state put this forth, criminalizing lying about healthcare, like COVID, you know? How many things did the
Mhm.
government say or do during COVID that turned out to be untrue and that they stuck to, even though science wasn't on their side, like the efficacy of vaccines? And so it is scary. And you mentioned 5599, and I will say it's been really shocking here to watch Democrats use parental rights as like this political football. So last year they passed 5599, which is the most dangerous bill I think I've witnessed passed in Washington state in the 15 years that I've been here. I was collecting signatures to try to repeal it on referendum, and we were just short. We had a short period of time to do it. But 5599, as you articulated, it basically puts there's only one reason in Washington state prior to that law that your child, if they ran away from home, the state wouldn't contact you or wouldn't tell you where they are. And that's if you were physically abusing them in some way. And now there's two things. And that is if you don't maybe want your child to get gender hormone therapy, and you don't approve of that kind of health care, they can run away to a shelter, get that kind of treatment, and you won't be told where they are. And what's interesting about that is, so they were saying, we got to protect these kids. We respect parental rights, but we got to protect these kids. And then this year, fast forward, and Democrats didn't want to pass a bill to protect kids from parents who were actively abusing fentanyl around them in the home. They were like, oh, you can't just strip parental rights, even if someone's addicted to drugs. You can't do that. And it's like, wait. You can strip parental rights if they don't agree with, gender hormone therapy, but you can't strip parental rights if they're using the deadliest drug in existence right now, like 3 feet from their toddler child. It's wild stuff.
It is wild. Hey, send me something not so wild, like no edibles, no murder, like diary notes or anything like that. Only winning lottery tickets. Letters like Francine sent me here saying, I love listening to you, Allison. Please address inflation for seniors. I am 71 and still have to work to make ends meet. At 71, I would not consider you a senior. That's still young. That's like the new 50. So don't discount. Yeah. And she's teaching Pilates. You go, Francine. PO Box 3355, Denellen, Florida 34432. Also, don't forget to check out Brandi's podcast, Undivided. She's mostly on Patreon, right? But she's a great follow on Twitter. So go find Brandi Kruse on Twitter. We're going to take a couple questions from the editorial board, AllisonMorrow.locals.com for her. $5 a month to go one-on-one with the most sensitive people on the internet. It's a great way to support my work and also a great way to just get some value out of your money. So as a privileged white male, what happens when I call into the hotline? I don't know.
They're going to be like, wait, you sound white, and then just hang up on you probably.